Hello and welcome to the Student StarCraft AI Tournament broadcast. This is Nightcat and I will be your host again today. So today we're going to be starting off with the winners bracket round 3, where we're going to be catching a PvT with Stardust vs Halpan, and then a ZVP with Monster vs Banana Brain. After that, those matches first of all will be best of 5. After that, we are going to jump down into the losers round 3, where we will be checking out TVZ with Xiaoyi going up against McRave Z, and then a PvP with Purple Wave going up against Crazio. So I think we've got an exciting cast ahead of us today. So let's go ahead and get into our first series, which we'll be starting off with winners bracket. So let's go into Stardust vs Halpan. So game 1 of our first series is going to have us on Empire of the Sun, with Stardust spawning as the teal Protoss up at the top left of the map. And then down in the bottom right position, so cross spawn, which Terrence loved to complain about, favors the Protoss. But we've got Halpan, aka Halo, spawning as the purple Terran. So we did see a scout go out rather quickly from Halpan, and it looks like it will be a proxy barracks play, which would either be like, okay, I think it's gonna get seen here. Yeah, I mean that barracks definitely got seen, so it's actually a BBS, and yeah, the center of the map you can't build anywhere, so it's really like, you know, you pretty much have to pick a corner that you're going to do BBS with. Now, this top right is maybe not the best corner for this type of play. Actually, the spawn where Stardust is, and not just because Stardust is there. And you can see Stardust is going for a 2 gateway with a forge, so I think Stardust will hold this. But the reason over here would be better is because then, you know, if you are... the worst case scenario, Stardust is down here, right? And then you've got a cross spawn away from your BBS, but we're gonna just cut to the action here real quick and see how this turns out. So yeah, this Marine's running away when targeted by the Zealots. Excuse me. Still dealing a little bit with a cough, I apologize. Actually, these Marines might be able to get some work in. If there's enough of them, they can kite these really well. These Zealots are really low on health here. Actually, forgot to bring up the production tab here, so we'll see as core is on the way. There are 2 cannons though, so I don't think that Halo can quite win this just with this, but we'll take this gateway out. And actually, I think the forge and the core are pretty exposed here, but maybe, just maybe, this cannon is enough to defend it, right? But even when one goon pops out, like, one goon is not enough. Oh, now the Marines are pouncing in here as that Dragoon pops. Not what you want to see. They get slaughtered by the cannons, but now there's some Marines more positioned where they should be to take out these buildings, right? And I can see diving in to try and, like, oh, but no, don't dive all the way in to get that goon. Oh, bit of an overcommitment there with the Marines, and I think Stardust is going to come out of this what looked really dicey. Stardust able to repel the attack, and now we see a factory starting down for Halpan, and it looks like there's a bit of a dance here at the main with these 3 SCVs and this probe. So Halpan, look at the transition, but I don't know if it's going to have the time to do it. We'll see if it's going to go straight into Vulture production or machine shop. It is going to the machine shop, so yeah, it recognizes it needs the tanks, but these Dragoons are on the way and they're about to be here, and I just don't think there's enough. The Marines are still just sort of streaming into Stardust National. If they had streamed down here, maybe, you know, Halpan could have thrown down a bunker, got those Marines loaded in, and I having to pull all of the SCVs. There, excuse me, is 1 tank, and actually Dragoon's able to get trapped by the SCVs to take it out. Now we do have 1 tank, but needs to be careful to keep that tank alive. First, these Dragoons here needs to be extra careful. So there's 3 Dragoons. They deal a ton of damage to these tanks. A couple of repairs going on, but yeah, I think there's just going to be too much. There's no mining right now. Just pure mining gas. Really should have moved those over to minerals, but yeah. Good attempt. It actually looked like that BBS was going to succeed, but just it seemed like the Marines have like a mode where they just dive in on Dragoons, which makes sense because these Dragoons, they kite a lot, so they can be very effective against units such as Zealots, such as Marines, etc. So having that sort of dive-in code is kind of like, it makes sense, but when there were cannons there as well, the Marines just really needed to keep their distance and just pick off buildings, right? You pick off the core, you stop the Dragoons from being made, you pick off the one gateway, which it did, you cut the unit production, you can pick the forge, so there can be no more cannons, like you can get that second gateway, like all of those buildings were exposed. And so you really could have, if not won the game, at least desperately slowed things down, right? Because then that counterattack probably doesn't happen anywhere near as fast. You have more Marines. You know, even if all those Marines then die after you get those buildings, you have time to get a bunker, to get your tank, to get siege mode, to take your natural, etc. So, very close game there, closer than I expected, seeing, how it initially started and the openings that were chosen. Let's go ahead and get into our game 2 with Stardust up 1-0. Game 2 will be taking place on Moonglaive 2.1 with Halpan spawning as the red Terran over on the left side of the map. And then Stardust is going to spawn as the blue Protoss up at the top of the map. Looks like we have another early SCV out for Halpan, so I'm suspecting that this will be another BBS. And I'm not exactly sure how the buildability on Moonglaive is, or how exactly open this is. We just saw the probe scout from Stardust go by, and it will not see that proxy barracks, but it might get suspicious when it sees, no barracks here or anything. And this is something that you probably wouldn't really see humans do, is split the barracks like this, right? Because it can make it hard and or difficult to produce out of both those barracks. I mean, you can obviously hotkey and stuff, but this is kind of nice because it sort of positions them like one maybe a little bit closer to another start position, while the other one, again, this being a 3-player map, it just makes it the potential for travel distance for at least one of the barracks to be a bit shorter, depending on what turns out to be the case. We have the 2 cannons coming down, so I think, Halpan, if it can at least, like, it does know where he is, so it's going to go ahead and build up a few Marines before it runs out. As long as it doesn't dive those Marines into these cannons, I think it has a chance if it can pick off some of these buildings here, so we'll see what's going to happen here with this initial exchange. The Zealots are going to see these Marines, and they are going to try and charge. I think they're going to go until they're, like, just about dead. There is a little bit of trapping that can happen there with the minerals, and okay, good, that Zealot gets, well, good for Stardust, gets in there just in time. Now trying to pick off the buildings, not going after the cannons. The core is not done this time. So, I think with the barracks being a bit closer here, the first gateway falls, and now if the second gateway falls, this is going to be big trouble for Stardust, having to rebuild those gateways. Now the Marines diving in here, they're going to take out these Zealots, and they're going to try and get these cannons, but oh no, they're like not concentrating on the cannons, unfortunately. They are doing some damage here. The third gateway is on the way. This gateway, I think, is going to fall, but these two on the right here are going to finish, and that's going to potentially allow some unit production. Now, it is going for Zealots as opposed to Dragoons. I think this gas might get picked off, which, this spawn, or, the spawns, or actually, I guess it's, well, we'll comment on it in a minute, but the Zealots are going to chase these Marines away a bit. But now they're just holding position there. The one does fall, but there's a couple of Dragoons coming out, which I think is going to end this. But this time the machine shop is going to be in plenty of time for a tank or two to happen. The Dragoons are not pulling all of the Marines into the cannon, and that Zealot actually pushed the Marines away a little bit. But Marine production has kind of stopped here. The gas does fall and gets replaced. These Marines could almost just camp there, but they are going to get cleaned up now. And so now Stardust is going to try and counter with these 2 goons, but there is at least one tank here for Halpan. I'm not sure why the SCVs there are freaking out, if it was from that scout or not. And so we can see here that the Dragoons are going to start hitting the natural here, but siege mode is done. The tank will siege up, perhaps a bit too far back. But a few Marines coming in to help here. Bit of an overreaction with the SCV pulls, but Halpan will be okay and has done a lot of damage with that early rush. But the workers are pretty even right now. So what I was talking about with the gas positioning too, like on this position, like the gas is kind of exposed to the ramp, right? It's kind of close. And on this one, the gas is in a lot of ways even closer, right? Because you come in, the gas is right there. This particular base, the gas is kind of tucked away. So had Stardust spawned here, that gas would not have got picked off, right? So that's just sort of the positional play that is working out here. Now Stardust continuing to try and be aggressive. A couple of tanks caught out of position with no support, just out in the open. One Dragoon falls, but that is, I think, a favorable trade there for Stardust. Halpan really needs to just sit back and grow its lead instead of trying to continue to push things. If Stardust is going to, try and dive in here and freely give Dragoons away, Halpan would be so much better off to just sit back and wait, especially like you don't want to be sending tanks with no support up against Dragoons, right? Like you want vultures, you want something to support this tank is just surrounded right now. But the tanks will push these Dragoons back a bit. I don't like that these tanks are moving so far forward with just pure tank production. Because yeah, see, like these Dragoons can just dive right on top of the tanks, and like, what can Halpan do, right? There's nothing to keep that from happening. Now we're starting to see some vulture production, but now there's only 4 tanks because Halpan has given up 5 tanks. There could be 5 more tanks for Halpan is what I'm saying here. And there could be 6 more tanks for Halpan. So now we've got the Terran army trying to fight up the tiny ramp here, as opposed to taking the larger ramp, which would be a bit easier to go up. So what was looking like a strong position for Halpan is now looking like a much stronger position for Stardust. Or Stardust diving into this natural, and there's just these few tanks and all of these SCVs being pulled, but and they're actually, I think they're not necessarily being pulled for this fight, but they just happen to be there, so they're joining in because there was a third base put up for Halpan. But look at the worker slaughter here, down to 18. Wasn't like 50 workers, and is now at like 14. I think this is pretty much over for Halpan. Just Halpan did good damage with that rush, but then just overextended itself, lost a couple of tanks for nothing up on the high ground, and then tried to push forward with just tanks again, and lost those tanks for nothing too. So I think this is definitely a case of just being overly aggressive, just costing the game there for Halpan, and this will put Halpan down 2-0, so Halpan not at risk of being eliminated from the tournament, but if it loses one more game, it will be knocked down into the losers bracket, where it could potentially be eliminated. I'd like to see Halpan do a bit more of a standard opener against Stardust, but we'll see what it has in store for Game 3. Game 3 here will be played on Andromeda 1.0. We've got Stardust spawning as the blue Protoss up in the top left of the map, and down in the bottom left we have Halpan spawning as the purple Terran. And it looks like we're going to see the same play from Halpan this time, so I don't know if it's like hard-coded to 100%. I'm playing Stardust. We are doing BBS or what, but I really wish we could have seen just a normal macro game from Halpan here against Stardust at least once, because I feel like Halpan, probably has a, or well, not probably, but I feel like they have a chance to take Stardust on in a straight-up macro slugfest, but it looks like we're getting this, maybe not, because we saw the last game, Halpan lost because it was just overextending with the tanks and just being overly aggressive. Now, one difference, though, is we're only seeing one gateway from Stardust, as opposed to 2. We are still seeing early cannons. So it looks like Stardust is, you know, oh, and these cannons are in the front, essentially. So the Marines really aren't going to be able to do, I think, much of anything here. It'll be interesting to see how Pan tries to do here. It does come up into the natural, see that there's nothing there. Going up next to the minerals is an interesting spot. I'm not sure if that's maybe just some pathing issue. This map is a little bit unique at the pathing into the main, so a little bit unfortunate to see in this, you know, do or go down into the loser's bracket game that we've got this kind of strange behavior happening for Halpan. Stardust, though, is powering along, will have Dragoons out in time. You know, Marines do overpower Dragoons when the Dragoons are small enough number. You know, you can take out one Dragoon with like 3 Marines, and there are certainly more than 3 Marines here. But I think Stardust's army is just, at this point, going to scale a lot better. And this is really weird because, like, we're not even seeing a transition into factory at the moment. I mean, gas did just start, but, like, there's just this Marine force clumping up here, and I'm not sure why they're clumping up here and not going up the ramp. It is kind of keeping Stardust here, though, inside. And Stardust does try to go down the ramp. This encourages Alpine to try and go up the ramp, but I don't know. I think Stardust is ultimately going to win this. Yeah, like these Marines are just getting shredded now based on the amount of Dragoons there are. Like, with no medics. The factory just finished, machine shop just started. I think this is going to be a very quick game 3 for Stardust, as these Dragoons are just going to work their way down, and it's just a shame to see Halpan go for this barracks supply 3 games in a row and lose each of those. Like, it's good to have some sort of, like, surprise play like this in your repertoire, but pulling it each game, and especially too, there are little issues like the Marines clumping around the minerals there in this game, and then in game 1, when it looked like there was a good chance to win, just diving those Marines in to the cannon fire was just very, very unfortunate for Halpan. But with this, Stardust will secure its place in the next round, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is round 4 of the winner's bracket. So very strong play from Stardust, being able to withstand the BBS play from Halpan. And I kind of wonder if, like, this Gateway Forge, or Gateway Forge and the 2 cannons, if that's, like, sort of just anti-Halpan play because of this BBS play. But that will be game 3 of our first series. Again, with Stardust coming out 3-0 on top. So we'll go ahead and get the second series of today started. Our second series today, we'll start off with game 1 on Python, with Banana Brain spawning as the yellow Protoss up at the top of the map, and over on the left side we have monsters spawning as the orange Zerg. Over on the left, we see again just that strange mining path for this particular mineral patch that these workers take, which is just a shame that that happens. But that's just the way that the map is designed, as was pointed out to me after the one broadcast where I was talking about it a little bit. Because Python is a very old map, typically not in play these days in human leagues, so just a map that I'm not super familiar with playing on to know these little issues that exist on it. Looks like we are going to have a fast expand from Banana Brain, going with the Forge first, and we are getting a pull first, and Banana Brain gets the full scout on it with that scouting probe there. The Forge first expand is also going to be scouted by Monster with the drone here. And since the Lings have not really popped out yet, now it was a Ling first, or a pull first play, but Lings weren't immediately morphed when the pull finished, so able to get away, I think, with that Nexus and then getting the cannon. Does need to be careful, though, that there aren't too many Lings spawned with just the one cannon there. And actually, with this wide open space, a Ling gets in there. It really could have just started hammering on this Nexus to put some damage on it, and there wouldn't have been anything really to deal with it for a while, so very strange and unfortunate to see that Ling get pulled back into the cannon ranges. That could have been some trouble there. And I think that's another thing about this map is, like, this is such a wide choke here that this sort of play, like, you can't clog this up with Zealots. I feel like a Ling flood play would be very, very powerful here if Monster chooses to go with that. But we do see that Monster's going for a third at the second expansion here. Now, it is getting a lot of Zerglings, so we might be seeing a Zerg flood happen here. They're all gathering here at the bottom of this ramp, though. And they seem to be working their way here, and they are going to dive in and just, yeah, you can't plug up the holes there. I think Monster is going to... Well, we'll see. The Zerglings keep getting pulled in what they want to do. There is one hammering away on the forge there. Now, the probes are being pulled, but it's just not going to be enough. There are way too many Zerglings. There are 38 Zerglings on the map right now. The majority of them are in this base here. Range is being upgraded, but I think the Zerglings might have waited to really do the full pounce until speed was done for them. I'm like mixing up what the upgrades are, but yeah, there's 2 workers left for Banana Brain here, and Monster's going to take a really strong Game 1 win here, but I don't think that's necessarily indicative of how the rest of this matchup can go. I think part of this is the product of just being such a wide choke. This sort of fast expand style I don't think is really going to work well on Python, but I think there is a much better opportunity for Banana Brain to succeed on other maps in the map pool, so we'll see what gets rolled for them. Monster taking the lead, going 1-0, heading into Game 2. Coming in 0 and 1, spawning at the top left of Fighting Spirit. Spawning as the red Protoss, we have Banana Brain. And coming in 1-0, spawning as the blue Zerg, down in the bottom left, we have Monster. Fighting Spirit, you can get more of that fast expand wall with just like 1 or 2 holes that you plug up with Zealots. So I think Banana Brain's strategy here has a lot more opportunity to work than it did in Game 1 on Python. It looks like we are seeing that pull first opening from Monster. So we might see that sort of 3-base Zergling flood again, and we'll see if Banana Brain is better equipped on this map to handle it with the terrain features that exist than on the previous map. And this probe, getting a good scout in, was a first scout there for Banana Brain, so we'll be able to see pretty much everything. Saw that drone leave, but did not see it start the natural, but just seems to be curious about what's going on in the main here, and it will be 2 Zerglings and a drone out of those first larvae. Cannon going down here for Banana Brain now. The scout drone just getting up here into the main of Banana Brain, and we'll be able to get a decent scout. There's also the Overlord now. It'll be a little bit before there's anything that can sort of push that Overlord out. The gateway is going down. Actually, that Zergling could have run into the main and caused some trouble. The Zerglings are getting like to the natural just before that cannon finishes, but it stays within the range of the cannon and will get sniped. Meanwhile, the scout probe is trying its darndest to return home, and it just barely does to the safety of that cannon. And transfer a little bit late there from Banana Brain. It actually makes a new probe that it sends up into the main, which is kind of interesting. I think it sent that probe to mine gas, of all things. But there's one Zealot. I think it maybe needs a second Zealot up here, which are no Zealots being produced. And actually now this cannon able to get jumped on by these Zerglings. Speed isn't even done yet. Monster just sensed blood and jumped in there. Banana Brain was trying to get away with like less Zealot production than it needed. There was a hole down below and the hole up top, and it just went for the one hole. And just the one cannon, and the Zerglings were able to just jump on top of it. Monster just showing great situational awareness here to go for the main now before too much can be built up here, and going after those probes, leaving the unpowered buildings in the natural. A very, very quick game too as well. We might have a couple of just quick best of 5 series here in this winner's bracket. Monster looking very, very strong here. I mean, I was thinking that Banana Brain had a better shot like on a map like this, but just cut too many corners there with the Zealot production, and the scout drone there able to start trying to go home after the cannons are cleared from the natural. I think that was the scout drone at least, but I know all the Zerglings almost positioned in this, or not positioned, but directionally facing the same way. So it looks kind of cool there, but Monster going 2-0 so far against Banana Brain. Banana Brain gonna fight to stay in the winner's bracket, but will they be able to? So fighting to stay in the winner's bracket here, we have Banana Brain spawning as the yellow Protoss up at the top of, once again, Python. And over on the right side of the map this time, we have Monster spawning as the Teal Zerg. So we are on Python again, which is a map that I don't think that fast expand with a wall really does well on, and it looks like that's what Banana Brain is going to do. So, I mean, this really feels like I think we're going to see a repeat of Game 1, where we get that Ling Flood that's just more than the really wide open loose wall can handle. And it's just not going to go good for Banana Brain. Banana Brain is a really strong Protoss AI, but I think it needs to, you know, have some other strategy that it employs on this map, at least in particular. Mainly just because the wide open choke here is just not, it's not conducive, I think, to this particular strategy. Looks like the drone scout will find Banana Brain. And I think that was the first base that it scouted. The Nexus is going to get thrown down. Probe is going to see these Lings pop here. And actually, this is, I think, one of the shorter distance rush distances of maps. So we'll see if the Zergling can get here. It does get there before that finishes, but we'll see. It does go ahead and retreat and get caught, just like in Game 1, by that cannon there. Third base being taken by Monster here. The drone that's going to be scouting around in that main for a while, along with that Overlord. And the Sentry Zergling there just kind of chilling out front. We've got the Zerglings gathering here. We'll see when that 100 gas gets hit. Well, it needs the minerals for it too. There it is. Link speed is started, so we will probably see that flood happen right when that link speed ends. And yeah, this is the problem. Again, like, this Zealot is now going after this drone. It needs to be part of this wall, but even if it were part of this wall, it is not going to really hold well. So here comes the Zerglings now. The link speed is almost finished, so they're just gonna inch their way in this formation here, but once now link speed, I believe, is done. So these Zerglings will get into position. Yeah, now it is done. They're just going to charge in here. And they're going to take out that pylon and then do some damage on the buildings and pull off to take care of these Zealots. But yeah, it's just like Game 1 pretty much here. Now they're going to prey on these probes. The worker count for Banana Brain is just about to drop into single digits here pretty soon. And that'll be it for the series then. This is going to be a 3-0 win for Monster. Just very strong Ling Flood to sort of exploit. I love the way that those Zerglings all just pounce on those cannons when they finish there. But yeah, just exploiting, you know, part of it is the map here, where it's Python with this big wide choke at the natural, but I mean, even on Fighting Spirit, which is a map where you should be able to fast expand as Zerg, just one cannon, not enough. And really, you need to, if the Zerg is going to try and swarm, pull your probes to defend your cannon and stop the Lings from swarming onto the cannon. But those type of reactions, it's hard to get into an AI and have it be able to do those correctly. So, very well done by Monster. And that will conclude our games in the winners bracket. So up next, we will be jumping down to the losers bracket round 3. We'll get that first series loaded up here in just a moment. So our first series here from the losers bracket round 3 is going to be Xiaoyi spawning as the blue Terran in game 1, up at the top left of Andromeda 1.0. And McGravesy spawning as the red Zerg up at the top right. And excuse me for just one moment. Sorry about that. As soon as I started, my throat was like, you're gonna have to cough now. And so I have to take care of that. But to the game at hand here, so we've got ourselves a Terran versus Zerg here. McGravesy has shown itself to be a very capable Zerg, so long as the Mutalisks engage with things. And yes, I'm going to keep harping on that a little bit. But the problem seems to mostly appear for Zerg versus Protoss. So I think against Xiaoyi, it's got a very good chance here, especially Xiaoyi goes mech. And if you don't get enough Goliaths fast enough, you're just gonna have a bad time. So I think McGravesy has a very strong chance in this particular matchup. Xiaoyi getting the first scout off on McGravesy. And McGravesy actually not even scouting with... Oh, wait, no, it did scout with an Overlord. Okay, there it goes. It just went down to the bottom. The pool is done, so we did go pool first. Our firstlings are about to hatch, actually, at the time that the lair started. So, yeah, we're seeing that 2 hatch play, and I like that this other Ling here is just checking for any proxies that may have been built. And we actually have a Marine coming all the way from Xiaoyi, so Xiaoyi trying to be aggressive right off the bat and sending those Marines. Now McGravesy is actually trying to hunt down where Xiaoyi is, but this could be a problem because if those Lings aren't defending the base before Sunken gets put down at the natural, these Marines can kind of just walk up here and they are going to get a couple of shots off on some things. But now we actually have the Vulture before a creep colony could go down. So McGravesy could be in a bit of trouble here. The creep colonies are morphing into Sunken... Oh, I thought that was a colony. That's actually the Spire. McGravesy in a little bit of trouble here. It's not going to have the money for any Mutalisks, and now with the Zerglings gone and everything, like the Vultures are just free to be able to run by this Sunken. So wow, I did not expect that this game would go this way. Just that Sunken being a little bit late. Now there is, oh, very nice targeting of the larva with the Vultures there. There are two Mutalisks, rather. I was going to say there is one, and then I said there was 2, so it came out there is 2. Mutalisks on the way while the natural is being taken for Xiaoyi. Xiaoyi is probably getting mines, actually, which are also effective at killing larva, but those Vultures have been cleaned up. A run-by is still potential here. Yeah, there are a couple of turrets at the natural. There's a couple in the main, so pretty well protected until that Mutalisk count can grow, but it's going to be really hard for McGravesy to grow that Mutalisk count right now. But there's no Goliath. Okay, now Goliath production has started. The armory is up at the top left there, so there's not really going to be much of anywhere that these Mutalisks can do a whole lot, but McGravesy really needs to try and find an opening here, and Vulture's being brave, trying to take out this Sunken here, but just not able to do it. That early aggression, though, really hurting McGravesy here, trying to find a spot. I feel like those Mutalisks could take some shots off maybe on these SCVs on the edge here without taking shots, but it is distracting these Goliaths, keeping them at home to have these Mutalisks just sort of dancing here in and out of vision. Meanwhile, the 3 Vultures are sitting vigilant there, and McGravesy's economy is starting to come back. I mean, we're back up to 18 workers now. But things are definitely delayed here. The Mutalisks trying to find maybe another avenue to go. I'm surprised they're not really engaging as much with these Goliaths. I mean, they do have range, but we're getting weapons instead of armor. And usually against Mutalisks with Goliaths, you want armor as opposed to weapons because it's not just -1 damage from Mutalisks, it's essentially like -3 because the Worm Blade bounces across multiple targets. So each Mutalisk kit is going to hit 3 of them, and each of those hits will benefit from the -1. So that's why it's more like a -3 damage from the Mutalisks, even if it's spread out. But Xiao Yi's army is looking pretty strong here. A good number of Goliaths and tanks, and this is the sort of mech push that you want to do against like a Mutalisk build here. You just have to be careful that the tanks don't get sniped. And it looks like McGraveZ here wants to take a third, but not quite confident in getting that drone out. Sorry if you heard that, somebody with a loud engine outside zooming by. But, or maybe that was the vultures here revving their engines. Either way, the giant mech army is marching across 25 Goliath, like 3 tanks, so I don't think McGraveZ is going to be able to hold this. I just think there was way too much economic damage with that initial run by, and that creep colony was from the natural was just a little bit late. And I think that's in part because of the pool first build, right? Because the creep really had not spread enough for McGraveZ to get that creep colony. Now the natural will fall. There's this macro hatchery here that is probably going to fall too. The Mutalisks are just being slaughtered there by the Goliaths. Just checking the upgrades really quick here. Plating 1 is on the way, but not finished yet for that engagement. And yeah, McGraveZ just not going to be able... The Mutalisks are just going to die as they hatch. Now we have the Overlord Massacre happening, and yeah, that was just an unfortunate game for McGraveZ. We'll see if it opens something similar in Game 1, and if Xiao Yi is able to capitalize on that or not. Game 2 in this series is going to be taking place on Circuit Breakers 1.0, with Xiao Yi spawning as the White Terran up in the top left of the map, and McGraveZ spawning as the Orange Zerg up at the top right. So we've got a space map, space tileset by map, or space station tileset, I forget the exact name of it. Again, we've got similar spawns, top left to top right. Well, I guess it's same spawns because top left, top right, they're in the same spots they were in Game 1. So we'll see if we have an interesting or a similar product as Game 1, I guess, basically. So, you know, will the creep colony and sunken come fast enough? I'm thinking it's not going to, seeing that we're getting a pool first opening. I think against Xiao Yi, McGraveZ really needs to do the do a hatchery first opener, because otherwise, and Xiao Yi's going to get the first scout off too. Otherwise, Xiao Yi's vulture is just going to get here too quickly, and it's just going to tear McGraveZ apart. And it looks like the factory's already started. And the Marine here is out, looking around. And that's going to come in before this is even done, too. And actually, the Zergling and Marine are going to miss each other. But it's going to come back as soon as it sees that Marine. The Marine should be cleaned up, but this is still going to be a potential problem here for McGraveZ, as the first Vulture is out on the field now, and the creep colony just getting started. The Vulture is going to be here. Well, maybe. It's here now. McGraveZ is trying to block that ramp. Oh, hello. The Sunken finished in time because the Vulture was a bit occupied, but now there's nothing guarding the ramp because the Zerglings got taken out. So unfortunately, the Vultures are able to get into that main and wreak some havoc. And drones trying to transfer back into the main while there are vultures there. Making quite the scary dance. And the vultures picking on that larva. Still gonna get like 3 Mutalisks here. And the worker count down to 10 is not good. It's, don't transfer those. Don't go after the SCV. Take out the vultures here. Okay, now the main can be reestablished, but back home turrets are coming up. The Mutalisk count is not what you would want it to be right now. So still a lot of damage, a lot of slowdown done there. And there's still the risk of a run-by with these 3 Vulture here. They could just run right back in and start wreaking havoc again. This engineering bay is oddly exposed and could be taken out right now, but Gravesy is not worried about that. It's worried about this Vulture. Okay, now it's... It was firing on something up there. I think there might have been a Goliath up there. So if McGravesy actually can, like, camp this factory out and keep the Goliath count from getting too large, I think McGravesy has a shot at winning this here. There's... Oh, I was gonna say there's quite a lot gathered up here, but it's mostly just mines. And so it's still just those 3 Vultures. You know, I think McGravesy has a good shot at this game at this point now. Taking out workers. Shaggy's still at like about 30-some. Goliath pops out. McGravesy needs to keep this Goliath count low so that the smaller number of Mutalisks that it has due to that early damage can continue to keep the Goliaths in. Those Goliaths are going to come out eventually and be a problem if they're allowed to build up. McGravesy now trying to clean up these vultures that were sitting outside of its natural. So the run-by threat is now gone. 3rd hatchery going up at the 3rd. You can see that Charon boosters has been researched as the, or upgraded. I guess it's an upgrade technically. As you can see the blue smoke trail from the missiles out of the Goliath. The Goliath count is starting to grow though, so this could be a bit more troublesome for McGravesy to get more utilization out of these Mutalisks. Now, they could still snipe tanks, which would, I think, help, but I think McGravesy needs a transition into Hydralisks to really deal with Terran here. You know, use the Mutalisks that you've got, make them snipe tanks, and then the Hydralisks would just come in and clean up the Goliath army, or fight with Sunkens, right? I also thought at one point that the Gravesy got a lot more Sunkens, like, in the natural, but maybe that's been tightened up a bit. Meanwhile, there is a dive by the Mutalisks, but I think they're engaging, yeah, with the Goliaths. They're not really worried about the tanks, which I think is the opposite of what you would want to do here. You'd want to lower that tank count at this point, now that tanks are out. But it seems like the Mutalisks are going after what can damage them, as opposed to what the high priority target is, right? Because these tanks are basically going to mean that the Hydralisks and this one Sunken aren't going to be able to do anything, because the tank just sieges up and then takes everything out, right? But if the Mutalisks dived in and took these tanks out, then it's just a Goliath, then random Marines and Medic army. And the Zerg army is going to stand a lot more of a chance. But there was also, the other problem was that there was just one Sunken. And we do see that, the way I said, it seems like it needs a Hydralisk transition. It's doing it now, but it feels late. And that could be from the early damage that was taken by those vultures that ran by. So that could have thrown everything just to later than it normally would be. So it looks like McGravesy will be getting knocked out of the tournament, with Xiao Yi continuing on to the next round. So, you know, a good effort by McGravesy. Definitely showed some strong games and some really strong Mutalisk logic. There's definitely a few holes. There's Circling Scourge. And I think like in ZVT, for instance, like I think maybe just needs a little bit better prioritization versus mech in terms of what they're gonna do. And while Ironbot, it handled beautifully, like it seems like the run by protection is timed perfectly for Ironbot, but maybe not Xiao Yi. And Xiao Yi is a bot that's been around, like you can see from the name, 29. This is the COG 2019, right? So maybe just a little bit of tweaking to also make things line up for Xiao Yi, so that way it doesn't get the run by. And I think McGravesy has a stronger showing against this particular AI than it did this time. But great effort. Great to see McGravesy get this deep into the tournament. Xiao Yi will be moving on to the next round of the losers bracket. So let's go ahead and let's get our last series for today started up. Our final series of the day today, we have Crazy OP going up against Purple Wave. We have Crazy OP on destination for game 1, spawning as the Teal Protoss. And down on the bottom, we have Purple Wave as the Green Protoss. It's destination to go 2-player map. Players know where each other are. And we'll see how Purple Wave handles the cannon-contained cheese of Crazy OP into those Dark Templar. I think as long as Purple Wave does not overreact to this, I suspect that they'll be okay. But my predictions have been a bit off today, so we'll see how exactly this goes. It looks like Crazy OP is going to go for this spot across the bridge and not try to go for in the natural. Purple Wave sending out a scout that seems to be looking for these sorts of things and should see this now, and does try to engage that probe. Which is interesting because this probe's not really going to be able to stop. Pulling a second probe now, trying to take this probe out. But once these cannons finish, Purple Wave's not really going to be able to do much about this. Pushes that probe back pretty far, sends a scout rest of the way. But yeah, see, now the cannons are going to pick that off. So Purple Wave's going to have to wait until they have a decent enough army, which it looks like that is what they are doing. Oh no, but wait, why are they continuing to send probes out? Please don't send more probes out. Why is there... No. Well, this could be a problem. If Purple Wave is going to keep its worker count low by just constantly sending out a probe, that could be an issue. They are getting a robotics facility, though. So it looks like they may be trying to get to Reaver quickly, which would allow them to, bust these cannons safely. But I do not like this constant. Yeah, there's the robotics bay. So it looks like that is the plan. The facility is quite far from the ramp, though. So without a shuttle, it's gonna be a bit before that Reaver gets here to take care of these. So could have better placement there on the facility. And I'm not digging this whole probe sacrifice to appease the cannons there. But other than that, Purple Wave's response is looking decent. It doesn't look like it's an overreaction or anything like that. So I think Purple Wave will be okay. The core is finishing, or has finished just now, and the cybernetics, or Citadel of Adun rather, is now being started for Crazy OP. So Crazy OP is on the track to... Oh no, is this a pathing issue? Oh, it's getting stuck because of the probes and the mineral line. The Reaver can't get to the natural. There's constantly, because of mineral locking, a probe in the way, and now the Reaver that's back here is just dancing. Oh no, you need these Reavers up at the front to take care of the cannons. Thankfully, observers are out. And this one's looking to try and go the same way. No! Purple Wave. So the cannons will stand longer because of that. So that is an advantage to Crazy OP. Crazy OP throwing down a ton of cannons in its natural. And starting the tech path to carriers. The first Dark Templar, I believe those are the first ones, yep, are out on the field now, getting to advance. But they will find that they're not quite able to do a whole lot as there are observers, and actually it is keeping them back. Not sure if Crazy OP has seen the observer or not. It is possible it's seen it, and so it's just keeping those DTs back. Now I do hear shuttles. So the Reavers are being brought to the front now. All right, so the shuttle with the Reaver is there. Click the screaming bird, even though it won't scream. So it looks like the Zealots are just taking hits from the cannons, not, excuse me, engaging, unfortunately. The back base now being taken for Crazy OP after clearing out the blocking minerals. Observer is really far away from the army at this point. Purple Wave's response, while initially looking decent, oh, now these DTs are diving in. The Observer coming up now. So the DTs, the damage that they will do is a bit limited here. Looks like maybe a shuttle going off for some harassment here. While there is an engage on the bridge. Carriers are out for Crazy OP. The Reavers are going to stop this fourth here. And I think they can do some damage elsewhere too, as they do outrange cannons. But with the carriers now on the way, I think Crazy OP, or Purple Wave is going to be on a little bit of a time crunch here. Purple Wave, though, is slowly breaking out of the cannon contain, but Crazy OP is already on 4 bases now. Those Reavers haven't been cleaned up. It is, I think, not looking too good for Purple Wave right now. Still, there are these 3 cannons, and it just is not unloading to fire on the cannons with the Reaver, assuming that there is a Reaver in that shuttle. And now we have the carrier on the scene. There's 2 more carriers loading up with interceptors. So maybe a little bit of an early reveal, but this natural, I think, is going to fall. The natural never really got is underway. Crazy OP up to 75 workers. Purple Wave just 36. Now taking a 5th base and a 6th base. Crazy OP is just taking over the map. And it feels like there's nothing Purple Wave can do at this point. Things have just kind of got out of hand. Crazy OP just needs to be careful that it doesn't lose the carriers. It's still building more, still building interceptors, it's got tons of minerals, really using the gas that it has. Now the carriers are fighting in open ground here, which could be a problem. The cannons have been cleared. And I think, actually, Crazy OP might be having a few issues with interceptor counts on some of the carriers, as the Dragoons have been taking out a good number of interceptors. But I think long term, like, this main is almost mined out. Is Purple Wave... Okay, I was gonna say, is Purple Wave long distance mining from the natural, but I think there was just a retreat because of the carriers. Purple Wave starting to get a 3rd base might actually be able to do something here. The carriers are not quite reaching like a critical mass yet. And the Dragoons are fighting these carriers back, so Purple Wave might be able to claw its way back here. There are a good number of carriers, though. There's 9 carriers, and there's 5 more on the way. So, while Purple Wave is making these Dragoons are getting cornered, and they're not really firing, and they're just falling one by one here. So yeah, I think Crazy OP still looking in a very strong position here, just taking more and more of the map. Purple Wave now trying to expand over on this right side, as this left side is just being taken over by Crazy OP's carriers. There's still a little bit of ground army for Crazy OP too, which does catch a probe there, and now the natural probes are starting to fall. Purple Wave down, losing all of their workers. Yeah, Crazy OP. It was looking like might had a chance to lose control of the game there, but managed to take it back. Purple Wave down to 1 worker with now no workers with only 1 mineral, so not going to be able to produce any more. I actually needed to cancel that Nexus before it finished for worker money, but even if it did that, I think this game was going to be over. So I like the response that Purple Wave did in this game, but I think there were just some execution flaws. And first, before the shuttles were out with the Reaver getting caught up, and also while this bay is being made, a shuttle could be made, but even still, like the Reaver getting caught in the mineral line was a problem, and then there just seemed like a reluctance for the Reavers to actually engage with the cannons, where there was like a lot of like shuttle circling or loading and unloading, and I think if Purple Wave can avoid those problems in the next game and bust out sooner, I think it's got a chance. It might depend on the map too. You know, if we got a 2-player map versus a 4-player map, or, you know, just where Crazy OP decides to place the cannons and such. So let's go ahead and get into the next game with Crazy OP up 1-0. Game number 2 with Crazy O coming up 1-0, looking to solidify its place in the next round, spawning as the white Protoss down in the bottom left of Fighting Spirit. Over on the bottom right hand side, going to be scouted first by the probe from Crazy OP. Purple Wave spawning as the red Protoss, looking to tie the series up to take it to a game 3 to stay alive in this tournament. For a brief moment, I thought maybe that was an in-base proxied pylon from Crazy OP, but it is not. The first pylon just finishing up for Crazy OP. We'll see the boards go down, and then we will see probably the pylon for cannons either out on this side of the bridge or on this side. We'll see which side Crazy OP chooses to do. But yeah, we'll see also, you know, if Purple Wave's response works a little bit better on this map. Fighting Spirit, depending on where the cannons go, while they, you know, can block this bridge, there is this other potential path out, and it seems like, to an extent, Purple Wave understands that concept, as this probe that I'm looking at now went out via this bottom left path. It looks to be checking the center, but when it gets that, just stick that zealot on. Oh no! Well, I mean, I guess the zealot would have died, but like, could have put a bit more damage on that cannon, as most of that damage is not going to heal up, as it was mostly just shield damage. No, Zealot, engage with the cannon there. No, you could hit that cannon. This seems to be a thing that happens with a lot of AIs, and I hope maybe this year will kind of illustrate it, and I hope it'll help drive developers to work around this. This cannon, and probably even this cannon, were exposed. They could be hit without this cannon backing them up. And the Zealot started to until this cannon hit the probe, and then the Zealot backed off. I feel like this situation could be a heck of a lot better for Purple Wave if Purple Wave had just stuck to try and take these cannons out before the situation got to where it is now. And I'm saying that like not as this is a Purple Wave problem, right? Like I've seen multiple instances of that type of behavior where there's like a building or buildings that are safe to hit with your units, and they don't hit those buildings. And that type of and it's the type of situation where they really need to be taking advantage of that. And the other thing is, and this seems to be, you know, in this matchup specific too, like Purple Wave very reluctant to just move those Reavers forward. Like the Reavers outrange cannons. The Reavers, you know, the Reaver could walk up and start taking shots on the cannon, start clearing the cannons, and then Purple Wave is no longer contained. It takes the natural. But at this point, with sitting in the main like this, you know, oh wait, okay, the Nexus got started, and now Purple Wave is committing. But this could have been sooner, and these cannons could have been cleared without any loss of workers. Oh, no, don't pull probes into it. Oh, down to 7 workers now. I think the probes got pulled because this natural got placed, so it looked like it was a worker pull necessary type of situation. But like, Going down all the way down to 6 workers, and now it keeps sending a worker out. Oh no. No. Don't. Oh, poor Purple Wave is just being absolutely abused here by Crazy OP. And the Dark Templar are already coming out. There is no detection for Purple Wave. Oh wait, there is an observatory, so there is... Oh, there is some detection. Okay, I missed the observatory. Whew, okay, there is an observer out, so Purple Wave can last a little bit longer here, but down to 8 workers. I really don't know if this is a recoverable position. I mean, Crazy OP on 3 bases now. Purple Wave on 2, but with just so few workers, you know, I just don't know that this is a position that Purple Wave can come back from. And we've got the fleet beacon started for, or just finishing now for Crazy OP. Carriers on the way. At this point, it's... Oh, those DTs were taking some, I think, splash damage just from being close to that Dragoon there. I mean, at this point, I don't even think Crazy OP needs to be aggressive with this ground army. Like, you could just, even with the bad manner 4th base here, taking what would be Purple Wave's 3rd. I know it's not like intentional bad manner, right? I'm kind of personifying the AIs here in a little bit of this casting, but yeah, like, if this were a human versus human game, that would be bad manner right there to take that base. Just be like, yeah, I've got this game so locked up, you're not going to be able to push this or try to take this at all with your 15 workers, right? But I mean, these Reavers are going to keep any ground army from just flat out winning the game, but I think once the carriers mobilize and come into Purple Wave's base, I think it's pretty much going to be over. But Purple Wave is doing a good job trying to recover here. Is just getting a shuttle now for these Reavers. Ooh, one of the Reavers actually falls from the Dark Templar. Looked like there was a little bit of an issue with the pathing that the Reavers were trying to take when retreating. They weren't quite getting their Scarabs off fast enough, because there were 2 of them. I think 2 can kill... 2 of them can kill DTs like in one shot. But now here comes the carrier. There's no anti-air. There's 1 goon being made. That's not going to be enough. Probes are falling yet again for Purple Wave. Crazy OP already up to 75, taking a 5th base, so just... Crazy OP is surprising me a lot this tournament, and the thing is, I'm not sure if Crazy OP received any updates for this year or not. So in my mind, I was kind of like, well, I know Crazy OP does this sort of cannon contain into DTs, into carrier type of play. But, you know, I was thinking like, well, you know, it's been around for a while, so I was figuring AIs would handle it better than they are right now. And so that's sort of where the surprise is coming from. Now, maybe there was an update that's just made this a bit more effective than I was anticipating. Since the tournament period is over and updates have been allowed, I can't easily check when the last update, I think, was for Crazy OP. Unfortunately, but Crazy OP is doing a pretty good showing here. I forget who its next opponent is. We'll when we can look at the bracket, we'll take a look at who their opponent will be. It's going to be one of the 2 players that lost earlier in today's cast. You know, it's going to take an AI responding, I think, to this cannon rush appropriately for Crazy OP to possibly get knocked out. I mean, it did get knocked down to the losers bracket. I can't quite remember who knocked it down now off the top of my head. So we'll get into more of that type of conversation in just a moment here as Crazy OP clears up the last building from Purple Wave and knocks Purple Wave out of the tournament. Crazy OP securing its place in the next round. So with that concludes the winners bracket round 3 and the losers bracket round 3. And we see Stardust and Monster making it to the semifinals up in the winners bracket. And then down in the losers bracket, we have Hao Pan Xiao Yi and Banana Brain Crazy OP. I'm not at the moment sure exactly how many matches will be in the next cast, or exactly how far we're going to go. So there's losers round 4 and round 5 that can happen before the semifinals are played. So maybe that will be a cast and then semifinals, and then losers round 6 and finals together, because finals could be 2 series depending on if the AI that comes out of the losers bracket to face the winner of the winners bracket in the finals. If they take that first series, it could go into a second series, so maybe we'll do it that way. But for now, it's looking pretty exciting. I mean, we've got a Terran versus Terran around 4. Xiao Yi's really shown its strength, making it all the way this far. Going to go up against Hao Pan, who was just recently knocked down into the losers bracket. And we've got Banana Brain going up against Crazy OP. Banana Brain having just got knocked down by Monster. And then Monster is going to be going up against Stardust. Both of those still need to lose twice in order to be eliminated from the tournament. So I think we've got a pretty exciting finish here. You know, really looking forward to the games that we have left. And again, just really quick before we leave, if you liked the video, go ahead and give this, or the cast, give this video a thumbs up, a like. Go ahead and subscribe if you have not already, so that way you get the you see on your feed whenever we've got the next one lined up, ready to be premiered. And, if you hit the notification bell, you'll get alerts, or at least you should get alerts, as far as I know, through YouTube as well, when all these things go up and are going live and things like that. So, thank you all for tuning in and sticking with us through this tournament. We really appreciate the support. And until next time, take care, everybody.